Okay guys, in today's video we're going to be going over two interesting topics. The first has to do with potentially an Order 1886 sequel being leaked out and how some people are thinking it might not be a PlayStation exclusive anymore. Either way, it sounds very exciting to me and I want to go over that with you. But I also want to take some time to discuss Cyberpunk 2077 and the Avengers game, both of these big games being moved to September 2020. That's when they're going to be releasing, and how that could potentially affect Ghost of Tsushima. Because even though we don't have an official release month or an official release date for Ghost of Tsushima, it does seem somewhat likely that September is the month that Sony may have been shooting for. So I want to just go over that for a little bit. But before going any further, I'm going to ask if you think you're going to enjoy the video, find it informative, or if you're just excited to talk about these games. Be sure to hit the like button. It really helps the videos out more than you guys know. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, be sure to do that as well. But starting here, it says, while developer Ready at Dawn has confirmed it is working on a new AAA console game, it hasn't said anything specific about an Order sequel. A new leak from a NeoGaf poster who previously nailed most of the details for the PS4 Pro several months before it was officially announced in September 2016 hints towards the possibility. Osiris Black omitted some details to make the alleged PS5 and Xbox Series game more difficult to identify, but they also dropped a few riddle-like teasers that pointed toward the Order 1886 sequel. In short, the alleged gameplay trailer shows a man with a shoulder-mounted light device serving a dim room, then firing on and fleeing from a yellow-eyed, many-armed creature. The monster taunts him from behind the door, almost singing the words, "I have found you," before the game's title appears on the screen and the trailer ends. Osiris Black says most of what they were shown was live gameplay rather than a cutscene, and specifically called the lighting and physics as being on another level. So yeah, I actually went and read this entire thing. It was very long. It was from NeoGaf, and I have never heard of this individual before, Osiris Black, but apparently they have been correct and accurate with their leaks in the past, so they do have some credibility here, and that is why I am entertaining this. Also because I did play the Order 1886 last year for the first time, and while I could totally see the flaws of the game, there were some major flaws, unfortunately, I also saw just how much potential a game like the Order 1886 had, and just how much more I believe Ready at Dawn could do with just a world like that, you know, a setting and those characters. Everything was so well established, they just didn't really execute too well on the actual game part, unfortunately. But there were some highlights there for sure. There were some seriously intense moments, and I said in my review of it, I gave my thoughts on it, that it would be a real shame, in my opinion, if, whether it's a PlayStation exclusive or not going forward, if the Order 1886 didn't get some type of sequel, or if that world wasn't able to be fleshed out more and Ready at Dawn wasn't given another chance. I'm almost positive that if they were given another chance, they would be able to definitely improve upon some big areas where they maybe didn't do so well with the Order 1886. I think one of those being trying to have it more gameplay focused and a little bit less cinematic, because I think this was a game that suffered from it. It tried to be too cinematic too frequently, and I think because of that, the gameplay in general was lacking. But this isn't a review of the game. I'm just simply saying that I would love this. Some people are a little bit confused as to why people would assume that if this is in fact an Order 1886 sequel that Osiris Black is describing, and I have to admit it does sound very much like that is what this is he is describing. Why would it release on Xbox knowing that the first one was a PlayStation 4 exclusive? Well, a lot of people are saying that the only way for that to happen is Sony would have to relinquish the rights that they currently have on the Order 1886, and a lot of people are saying that Sony does still own the IP. So the only way this could have been a reality is if Sony, without anybody noticing, basically sold the IP and sold the rights to it to either a third-party publisher or maybe Ready at Dawn themselves, and that is definitely a possibility. However, I would have to imagine that if Ready at Dawn was going to tackle a sequel to the Order 1886, it just would make sense for it to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive game. I mean, yeah, the first one didn't do that well for Sony, but this is a situation where I think Sony, I don't know, I could be wrong on this one, but I think it would just be in their best interest to just say, hey, okay, the first one wasn't too great, it didn't do so well, but let's give them another chance. Let's let them grow as a studio and improve upon the mistakes they made with the first game, and maybe you could get something truly special with a sequel. I wouldn't be upset if it wasn't a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Frankly, I would just be happy to see a game like this getting a sequel and getting another chance. But I just think it would be, it would just make a lot of sense, I guess, if it was a PlayStation 5 sequel, because imagine a situation where it is a third-party game and Ready at Dawn just absolutely hits it out of the park and it's an amazing game and people are like, oh man, like they really took this to another level. Sony would have missed out on that. You know what I mean? It reminds me of a situation with Demon Souls and Dark Souls, where back then From Software, they made Demon Souls and it was a PS3 exclusive, and they struck a deal with Sony, and the game was so difficult and just so different than anything else that was on the market that Sony believed this wasn't going to do that well, and they kind of just like released it and walked away from it and let From Software go do their own thing, and they ended up making Dark Souls, which technically could have ended up being a PlayStation exclusive if Sony had really tried to maintain that relationship. We did end up getting Bloodborne, of course, so that is the silver lining, but I'm just saying it would be a really interesting situation if we saw that happen again with an IP like the Order 1886. But again, either way, I think it's exciting. We do have to understand this is a leak. I know a lot of you guys are getting tired of hearing leaks, but the truth is a lot of people like to hear about the different leaks. You just have to understand that every time we get a leak, every time we get a rumor, you cannot buy into it 100%. Do not put 100% of your stock into it. It's up to you to decide how much you want to put into it, how much you want to believe it, but you always have to take it with a grain of salt until anything is officially confirmed. And again, this is coming from NeoGaf, but it's coming from an individual who has some credibility here. So moving on from that, we are going to discuss Cyberpunk 2077 and the Avengers game both being moved to September. Now, I didn't really think about Ghost of Tsushima releasing in September once we heard about the Avengers game being moved to that date, because I just kind of figured it's the Avengers game, two completely different games here. Ghost of Tsushima, the Avengers, and just because the Avengers is releasing the same month doesn't mean that's going to completely overshadow a game like Ghost of Tsushima, because the truth is I don't think the hype for the Avengers game is really as high as you would expect considering it's an Avengers game. It doesn't look bad in my opinion, but it definitely doesn't look that great. It's one of these things where I'm going to have to kind of play it myself to really figure out how exactly I feel about it, but I can tell you right now the hype for it is not nearly as high as I think it possibly could have been, but that's just based off of where I'm sitting. Haven't been paying that much attention to the game. But then we find out that Cyberpunk 2077, the juggernaut of a game featuring Keanu Reeves, is also releasing in September. And so I have to imagine that if Sony had any plans of releasing Ghost of Tsushima in September, they are potentially in panic mode now, thinking we need to move this game up. Now, I will say it is smart that Sony did not commit to a month yet, and maybe this is exactly why. Maybe Sony anticipated this. They kind of saw that, a bunch of publishers are most likely going to end up delaying some of their games, and some of these big titles could end up being the ones that get pushed back. And maybe that's why they didn't actually nail down a month yet, because they're waiting to see what happens. If that is the case, then boy, did they make a very smart move, because now I think it would be ideal, honestly, for Sony to release Ghost of Tsushima in either July or August. And a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not when you traditionally see big AAA games launch, but to me, it doesn't matter, right? Like, I would actually argue that it would be in publishers' best interest at this point to start releasing games, bigger games, during the summer period. I know that the statistics show and whatever that most people are not inside playing video games at that time, but I don't believe that. Like, people can go out and live their lives during the summer and go out and enjoy the, summertime and still enjoy video games, right? At least that's just how I kind of see it. But I really think that it would be ideal for Sony to get out of Cyberpunk 2077's way specifically, because you could maybe argue the Avengers and Ghost of Tsushima going head to head. Okay, not that big of a deal, but if they were like releasing in the same week, that could be a problem. The Avengers is a big name. There's people telling me the game's going to flop, but listen, it's going to sell incredibly well. It's the Avengers. Cyberpunk 2077, however, Yeah, that's a game that Ghost of Tsushima absolutely should not go up against. I know they are different games, but I don't think it matters. Cyberpunk 2077 is looking like one of those games, like a Rockstar level game, where it's like it doesn't matter what genre it's going up against or how different of a game it's going up against. It's going to dominate that time period when it releases. And I believe CD Projekt Red even said that they're going to be toning down the marketing during the summertime for Cyberpunk. I believe that's what they said anyway. And so it just would make sense if you have to do it mid-August, even late August, just get it out before Cyberpunk. Give it a little bit of breathing room to have its own time. Even if it does get a PlayStation 5 release, I'm telling you, like, if you want Ghost of Tsushima to do well and not potentially suffer from a game like Cyberpunk coming out, as well as a game like the Avengers coming out in the same month, definitely do that. I think it helps The Last of Us Part 2 significantly, because the further removed The Last of Us Part 2 is from these bigger games, especially a game like Cyberpunk, it's more attention, more eyes centered on The Last of Us Part 2. It has pretty much the stage all to itself. That's not to say that there aren't other big games coming in the first half of 2020. There are, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Cyberpunk moving away from these other games, these publishers are probably like, oh man, this is great, However, the publishers who had any intention of releasing their games in September are probably pulling their hair out right now. So yeah, I just wanted to take some time to discuss that. We're going to have to wait to see what the official release date ends up being. Hopefully it won't be September though, and if it is September, hopefully it will be a situation where Ghost of Tsushima comes out September 1st, and then Cyberpunk comes out, September 17th. I think that would be enough time maybe, but I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is it has to come out spread. It can't come out at the same time. Can't come out within the same week, or maybe even 2 weeks. I think that would just be detrimental. That's just my opinion, though. At this point, I want you guys to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What would you think about an Order 1886 sequel? And if we were to get one, do you think it would still be a PlayStation exclusive, or do you think there's a chance Sony ended up selling the rights to it to a third-party publisher, or even Ready at Dawn? And what do you think about Ghost of Tsushima? Do you think it will actually end up releasing in September, or do you think Sony's going to try to be smart about it and remove it from that big September lineup? Let me know your thoughts down below. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. Really helps it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.